Welcome to Focus on the Candidates. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Michael Zumbluskas, and Michael is a New York City resident.
hmm
And Mike is going to talk about Curtis Sliwa. So there was like 8 points or so difference between Mondami and Cuomo. If Sliwa would have gotten out of the race, do you think do you think Cuomo could have pulled it off?
No, because even if you add all of Curtis's votes to Como, he still wouldn't have won. Also, I think even if he pulled out, half of his voters probably wouldn't have voted at all in this race. They might have come out and voted in the city council races and some of the other races, but they wouldn't have voted for Como. Um, but there was a lot of money going against Curtis at the last minute. A lot of these that he's a spoiler, that he's a joke, which he never was. If Curtis is a joke, I'm sorry, the mayor-elect is even more of a joke. Curtis has more management experience and everything else. Uh, Curtis messed up on his campaign a little bit.
In what ways?
Well, first of all, the issue was the crime was an issue, but it was also not Curtis, but Como also did too. Mondami won on affordability,
Right.
and Curtis, 90% of his campaign was crime, crime, crime. He needed to address the affordability. He did a little bit in the debate, but he didn't have any campaign ads out there. He wasn't talking about lowering rent. He wasn't going out and basically saying how Mondami's policies were failures. For example, in St. Paul, Minnesota, they instituted basic similar plan about creating new housing that Mondami's pushing. Minneapolis, also a Democrat in city, tried a more capitalistic program, both at the same time. These are the twin cities in Minnesota.
Mhm.
Uh, St. Paul's went up by 61%
Mhm.
rent. Minneapolis went down by 40%. That tells you, you're talking the same region. You're talking basically in some that the they're a few miles apart, and this is how big the failure was with Mondami's policies. They needed to hit that more and more. Some of these policies were tried in Portland, and there's still homeless. There's all kinds of things that they should have been pressing. They weren't, because everybody was hearing free buses, lower rent, build more apartments.
Mhm.
I mean, during the debate, you heard it in some of his, you know, some of his newscasts and stuff, like what few there were. He stated that he wanted to turn a lot of these empty office buildings into housing, which would be quicker, um, and also get the 6,000 apartment and the NYCHA complexes back up online. And those 6,000 have been sitting there for well over a decade. I ran a couple times, and that was one of the things I was pressing, 6 years ago. And he didn't address that. Grocery prices, uh, why things are so expensive. He should have been saying a lot of it is because of government regulations, because all this environmental stuff that they want to push on the buildings, changing their heaters, and is costing hundreds of billions of dollars for all the buildings across the city to push up. So the landlords have to raise rents to meet those. Is there some landlords that are bad? Absolutely. But is rent too high? Absolutely. And it's more of a financial system. And they needed to point this out that this are the policies that have been tried. These are things he's not talking about that he can do nothing about, because once you all this extra, save the planet items they have to put into these buildings is driving cost up. And even, Bill Gates, one of the biggest, put, you know, sorry, one of the biggest purveyors of the climate change has now come out and says, yeah, all the stuff we're doing isn't really going to make that big of a difference. It's not the existential crisis that people are saying, but we were brainwashed over the years. Is there climate change? Yes. We've always had climate change. How much, is made by man? Don't know. And the other thing that people don't realize is new technologies are starting to come out that will take care of some of this stuff with all this extra cost. And that's what they needed to do against Mondami. You needed to tell the people why his policies failed, show examples of why they failed. And neither candidate did that. So he was going out there and promising the world like most socialists do, and it never works. Never works.
Okay, so, you know, Curtis has been around for many, many years.
Hmm.
And even towards the end of the campaign, um, the president kind of ridiculed him. So why didn't the Republicans and conservatives support Curtis?
Uh, well, he hurt himself a little bit with that in the debates when he said that we need illegal immigration to take the poor jobs. Most Republican and conservatives don't want the illegal immigration because it actually is depressing jobs. And, you know, that's the same nonsense that people say nobody will take those jobs. I'm sorry, I had those jobs all when I was a kid. Any dirty job you can think of, I probably held it. And like I washed dishes for 45 hours a week at three
Mm-hmm.
different jobs, making minimum wage to
Mm-hmm.
put myself through college. I worked, in a stables, cleaning out the stalls, shoveling shit, basically. Um, there's people that will take those jobs. Yes, our kids are spoiled, but that's because, and don't think they want these jobs, but they will take these jobs if we tell them to take these jobs. We have basically told kids, if you don't go to college, you're worthless. And that's not true. And we've
Mm-hmm.
been preaching that for the last couple decades. That's why right now, the average electrician's age is 40 years old. And they're going to be retiring in about 2 decades. They are not, they don't have close to the replacements, and we're short electricians. Electricians can make more than an accountant within a couple years. Actually, they make more, an entry level electricians going to be making 40, 50, 60 grand a year. And within 10 years, they're going to be making well over 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
And there's many other jobs like that that we have shortages on. Illegals are coming in and taking a lot of those jobs. But we can tell our kids, hey, you can do these jobs. They are stable jobs. They're good jobs. And and Curtis messed up when he says our kids won't do these jobs.
Okay, so did Curtis have a good staff around him that kind of counseled him on what to do and what not to do? Because Curtis has been in politics for a long time.
Uh, he had a decent staff, but the problem is they don't think outside the blocks. They didn't use him the way they should have used him, especially in poor neighborhoods that he's been defending for 40 plus years. Um, like I said, they concentrated too much on the crime issue without expanding. I sent them, I had people that were contacting me all the time, and I sent information to people about um, that a lot of parents wanted to hear more about his school policy.
Mhm.
It was never, he would never put it out. And these are things that he had to do. He had to expand from the crime. Crime is very important, don't get me wrong, and it should have been uh, being the base, but he should have been expanding out to these others.
Mhm.
And a lot of Republican consultants um, aren't that good in all around the country. They don't think outside the box. They don't uh, know how to penetrate outside of Republican and conservative areas. They don't know how to win uh, Democrats, independents. And that's the problem, especially in a city like New York.
So, do you think that the Democrats consultants are any better?
Some are, but not, they have better consultants in the city, but I say only 20% of them are good. Most of them are ripoffs.
So there was a number of people at the beginning of this past year that threw their hat in the ring for the Republican nomination for mayor. And all of a sudden, everybody backed out, but Sliwa was left. Why
Uh,
is that?
well, a lot of them got kicked off the ballot. Some of the Republicans that were going to run against them, the Republican Party challenged their petitions and kicked them off the ballot.
Okay.
Uh, because and also that's one of the problems with Republicans. They're anemic towards primaries. They don't think that uh, uh, Republicans beat themselves up and they can't coalesce and win an election if they had a contentious primary. But that's false. That's a false narrative.
Mhm.
And because what happens is the media shuts you out of being covered because you don't have a primary. It was slightly different when we had our primaries in September, but now we have them in June.
Right.
So, but basically you lose coverage from the major media.
Mhm.
Uh, they just don't want to cover you because there's no race. All the actions in the Democratic primary. So that's why they're going to cover that more intensely. And you're just a side note. And also, one of the other things is the um, primaries sharpen the candidate that wins because you have debates. They get to discuss their issues. They see what issues are playing better. Whereas if you're the single candidate, you don't get to actually discuss the issues, uh, put your ideas up against other people's. And prime example, go back to the 2000 presidential election.
Okay.
Uh, the Republicans had a number of candidates, and they had like 13, 14 debates all through that primary, starting from before the primaries even started. They started, I think the first debate was like in late November or early December of the prior year. Because of that, George Bush was able to hone his debating skills. So when he went up against Al Gore, everybody said Al Gore's going to wipe the floor with him. Al
Mhm.
Gore didn't have a primary. So
Okay.
he was the only candidate. So he wasn't sharp. Al Gore, if wasn't prepared for that primary because he didn't get to sharpen his debating skills during the primary. So when Bush came out and basically won the first debate, everybody go, "Oh wow!" Because the attack on him was he was a dummy, he can't do anything, and he won the first debate. All of a sudden, if you looked at the poll numbers, they went up so much that it became actual a race. If Al Gore was better prepared because he was sharpened, who knows? Al Gore might have won the 2000 election, but because of that, he lost that election in that first debate because now George Bush, who everybody, all the media and everybody was pushing down, saying he's not presidential material. All of a sudden, he's now on the same level as George Bush because he stood with a mano a mano in that debate and basically beat him. And that elevated his campaign to the winning campaign. That's
So,
what Republicans don't get in New York City. Well, New York State.
um, Giuliani was a Republican. Michael Bloomberg was a Republican. Do you think the Republicans in New York City can revive themselves?
Uh, they can, but they have to take a completely different approach. They need to start getting their voters out. They need to actually put because the Democrats have a machine that they can get out at a moment's notice, go door knocking and everything else. The difference between Bloomberg and Giuliani also was Bloomberg. Sorry, let's go to Giuliani first.
Mhm.
Giuliani had the Crown Heights riots. You had the Staten Island succession, which elevated Republican and conservative votes and moderate Democrats and independents because of the Crown Heights uh, riots. And he also ran before and did a very good job. So that's why he was able to win in his second race. Bloomberg, the only reason Bloomberg won was because of 9/11. Giuliani's, at the end of his second term, his ratings were in the dump until 9/11 happened. Also, because what happened too is 9/11 happened on primary day.
I
Because
remember
everybody forgets we only had one day of voting, and so that got canceled. And then they had to delay it 3 weeks for the primary to be reheld. By the time they had the primary, and Green and Jose Rivera, I think it was. No, it wasn't Jose Rivera. I can't remember the other candidate's name, but they had to have a runoff, which was another 2 weeks, and it was very contentious. And so there was only like a month before the general election. So the Democrats couldn't coalesce around Mark Green, and Bloomberg only won by 60,000 votes because of the contentiousness of the Democratic primary. Uh, some people were accusing Mark Green of some racist advertising. Um, why can't I remember his name?
even back in 2000, Mark Green uh, was a pretty. He
He
had
ran for he ran against Chuck Schumer and lost to Chuck Schumer.
right. He walked around the block a couple of times.
Yep, yep. Well, he was an elected official at one point in time, but he was the public advocate.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so he was the public advocate, and he started running for mayor.
Hmm.
Um, and that's why, because excuse me, um, and he was supposedly the shoe-in, and was the Brooklyn Borough president. Why can't I remember his name? Yeah, but and like I said, it was contentious, and so that's why the Democrats couldn't get together. So the machine was broken, so they didn't have the pulling power because
Hmm.
Democrats actually go to people's homes and pull them out to vote. Nowadays, it's different. They just get them. They do pull them out to vote, but they even bigger is they give them the absentee ballots and have them fill it out right then and there. And so that's their operation. Republicans don't have that in New York at all, um, and that's part of the problem. We don't have enough volunteers. We don't have enough ground game, and that is a big problem. And since and I know Trump is always a what shall I call him? A lodestone on a lot of Republican candidates in New York because he's been demonized so much. Because people forget Ronald Reagan was called a Nazi. The Democrats have been calling every presidential candidate since Reagan a Nazi, and people forget that. And so a lot of Republicans, because we are outnumbered uh, huge, hugely in this city, uh, are scared to talk up sometimes. We're getting more vocal. Some newer people are coming in. And also, I haven't checked the turnout, but I bet you Republicans didn't come out in a larger number than and that was a problem for Curtis. A lot of them, because of all this advertising, he can't win and everything, probably sat home because it actually affected the vote totals on a lot of the downstate tickets too.
So
Not downstates, down ballot
upstate,
tickets.
upstate.
No, 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 down ballot tickets.
Oh, okay. So, uh, after a number of elections, the party that's out of power kind of just fades away.
Hmm.
Uh, what do you think that's going to happen to the Republican Party? And do you think the Conservative Party is on the rise? And what about the Libertarian Party with Larry Sharp?
Well, until they get ballot status, there's, that's going to be a problem. Um, but the Libertarian Party at least runs candidates down ticket. There's a lot of districts in New York City, the Republicans don't even run anybody.
Uh-huh.
A lot of city council districts are left blank. A lot of state assembly seats are left blank. We need the Republican Party needs to start recruiting candidates. They should have been recruiting candidates like in May and June of this year for state assembly, state senate next year. They don't. They wait till after this election, then they start worrying about the next election.
Would you say that was the fault of Ed Cox?
A little bit, and also a lot of the county committee, uh, 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 county chairs, because
Okay.
Ed Cox can't do it all. But the other thing is sometimes the Ed Cox in the Republican Party only will really support candidates that they think have a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now in New York, for city council and for state assembly, well, all city races, but for state assembly and state senate, you now have matching funds. So there should not be an empty seat around. because the Republicans can help these candidates meet the minimum matching funds. And next thing you know, the state and the city is going to give them money to start running their campaigns. It's candidates that recruit people to the party. It's not the party itself. The candidates are the ones that need to energize the voter base and to recruit more members. And this goes back to one of the other problems about not having primaries that the Republicans despise is when there's a primary, the candidates are one of their big things is to go register new Republican voters or convert Democrat or independent voters to the Republican Party so they can vote for them in the primary.
Mhm.
And so you don't have that organization going. If you don't have your candidates actively going out and registering people to the party so they can vote for that candidate, you're losing probably tens of thousands of potential Republicans a year that will help the next election because now they're out as a Republican, and that is a case. The other thing is um, when you have multiple candidates with at least a little bit of financing, they amplify the message because most Republicans are running on the same thing. And if you don't have that, because you have them at every, especially the lower part of the ballot, city council, state assembly, state senate, going out and pushing the Republican ideas. Not always, but yeah, not all of them, but yeah, there's a few common ones. So it's a megaphone. So you have your top candidate, like it's probably going to be Elise Stefanik for governor next year.
Wait a second, stop right there. You
Sure.
know, um, Stefana kept saying she was going to wait till after this election was over.
Hmm.
And it was kind of like, maybe this is the wrong phrase, but it was a little bit of a blue wave. Do you think that's going to hinder Stefanik from running against the governor?
It might, but I think there's a lot of you know, since Como was close, not but didn't yeah it was you know he did get over 40 with Curtis. It was 48%. So Mondambi got over 50%. And what's going to happen? She's going to have to decide probably within the next month. I think she still might run it, because there's going to be a lot of people around the state. Mondami's election is going to energize more Republicans. You're also going to have Democrats across the state that are going to be worrying about it. And Mondami actually helped with his victory speech because he wasn't the nice guy in his victory speech. He started going after Trump. He started going after billionaires. He started going after business owners. Um, so that could actually push her there because people around the state might go, "Holy shit, we can't have this." Hochul, um, is endorsed Mondami. And by the way, she will have a primary from a DSA candidate, and Mondami will endorse that person over Hochul.
So you don't think it's going to be Delgado?
Um, no, it's probably going to
Okay.
be one of their own. So yeah, Delgado. Like I said, I think it's going to be somebody that's a Mondami type.
Okay. Okay, let's get back to Stefanik and her seat in the House. I don't think Mike Johnson is that popular. And there was talk that if Mike Johnson stepped down that the
She could be speaker.
yes. So why would you risk being possibly the next speaker to being running for the governorship in the blue state?
Well, if the if she's got presidential aspirations, it's easier to win the presidency from a governor's seat than it is from a congressional seat. Very few congressional people throughout our history have ever won the presidency. You had senators, but mostly they were governors, and you had a few generals. And Donald Trump, the first private citizen to win without any government experience.
But that's an awful big risk.
Not really,
You don't think?
because no, because if she loses the race, there's still 2 years of Donald Trump's presidency. He can elevate her to a cabinet position. So she'll still be, uh, basically in the spotlight. He
Well,
will create a,
he had cold feet at the end, and he didn't. He pulled the ambassador. She was going to be ambassador to the UN, correct?
yeah,
He
I believe so.
pulled
Yeah,
that
but
out from right under her.
yeah, because the Republicans didn't win that many seats. When he was going, when what happened was that the if you looked at the Republican majority, it was only by 10 votes or less. So he couldn't afford to have her out of Congress. That's why, um, as he pulled a few other people.
Yeah,
And
he kept appointing House members, and then when it came to Elise Stefanik, he pulled the rug from right under her.
well, that's because the House members he pulled were mostly from red states in very, very safe Republican districts. Nowhere in New York State is a safe Republican district, not even Staten Island. We've seen that where the Democrats have won Staten Island. We've had it upstate New York where Democrats every once in a while will pull a victory out of their hat in upstate New York. So he didn't want to take that chance,
Okay.
and I think that's why.
Uh,
Because you have to look at the overall picture.
hmm. Final thoughts on Sliwa, and is he done?
Um, I think so, because in 4 years from, unless there's a special election, because Mandami gets indicted or something, which I don't see coming. But yeah, like I said, unless, he gets removed from office or steps down for some reason, which I don't see why, uh, and there's a special election, I don't think he's going to run because he's going to be 81 years old in the next race. And I just don't
He,
think.
he's just 70.
Oh, no, he's 71 years old. Sorry, wrong.
Right,
I'm wrong. My mistake. I misadded. 71 years old, and
right.
I don't think he's going to run next time.
Okay.
Um, and his reputation was hurt a little bit this time, not like last time. And he's got to rebuild that a little bit.
He's running a number of cycles, hasn't he?
He's only run twice.
Is that right?
Yep, he's only run for mayor twice. He was thinking about running for U.S. Senate and governor a couple times, but he never pulled the trigger. He never opened up his campaign. He was talking about it. But the only two races he had were both mayor's races.
So all these years he's been working on the Guardian Angels.
Yeah, Guardian Angels, his radio show. As everybody forgets, he doesn't get paid by the Guardian Angels. That's complete volunteer, and that's an international nonprofit.
Okay.
Most people around that have a nonprofit that size are getting paid $500,000, which I
Okay.
think is ridiculous, but that's a different story.
So he had a blowout with the boss at the radio station, right?
Yep, because he felt betrayed that he turned on him. All these people turned on him and said, "Hey," and that was part of the problem.
So
That a lot
what's
of
his,
Republicans turned on him because they got worried about getting electing Mondami. And actually, there are polls by there was a couple polls that said Sliwa had a better chance against Mondami one-on-one than Como did.
wow.
Just that, but just Como. The problem is, like I say, Sliwa and Trump don't have the greatest relationship. It's not adversarial, but they're not, you know, they'll talk to each other, but they're not really friends.
Yeah, but in any walk of life, um, you have to work with people that you don't necessarily like, right?
I agree, but the Republicans are a strange breed that way, in a lot of respects. Democrats can have a knockdown, drag out primary, calling each other all kinds of names, and next thing you know, boom, they're running mates. Kamala and
Right,
Biden.
right.
Democrats can shove all that down because they Republicans are more independent than Democrats are. Democrats follow the party line when there's elected officials. They don't step out that much. However, now there's a slight rift in the Democratic Party between the Bernie Sanders, Mondamis, AOCs. Now that he won the mayor's race, it's going to be a lot. That rift is going to get bigger. Nancy Pelosi just resigned because she knows she's
She
next.
did?
Yeah, yeah. She's not running for reelection.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
I
so
didn't
she
know
this is
that.
yep. January 1st is going to be her last, or December 31st is going to be her last day in Congress.
But there's a whole other year before the election.
No, oh well, yeah, no, that's right. No, she's going to be through the election. Sorry, my mistake. Yeah, why was I think the mayor's in January 1st, but yeah, she's not running for reelection, so
Oh,
she'll be there for 2 years.
okay. And then she's gonna hang it up.
Yep.
Interesting. So,
And she knows that because of Mondami's win, she knows that uh, she's going to get a DSA candidate running, would have been running against her in her congressional seat,
mhm,
and she doesn't want to challenge. Um, I have the feeling Schumer might resign by 2028. He's up for reelection in 2028.
mhm.
I think he might not run for reelection in 2028. He's not popular in the Democratic Party, and the Mondami wing is going to go against him too.
Interesting. So, all of the things that you just said, I've made a mental note, and,
Okay.
and as these next couple of years evolve, you'll be getting a phone call from me to do another
Okay.
show. So you've been listening to Michael Zimblas. Oh God,
Zumbluskas.
sorry. I'm
That's
Cyn-
okay, Cynthia. Sorry.
I'm Cynthia Pooler. This is focused on the candidates. And if you like the show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Mike, it's great talking with you, and
Thank you very much.
thank you everybody for listening. Have a wonderful day.
All right. Enjoy.